Triple E EDC back again with another knife battle. Now, for those of you who are new to the channel, my knife battles are a little bit different than other YouTubers. A lot of people do categories, and what they do is they will declare a winner in each category, add up whoever has the most categories, and there's your winner. I don't do that because what ends up happening sometimes with that is some categories are clear wins and some categories are close calls, and so you may end up with the inferior knife winning. So what I do is I take the categories and I assign values to them between 1 and 10, and I add up the values at the end, and that gives you a much better idea of the overall strength of a knife versus another knife. So let's go ahead and talk about what these are. This is the 9400, Benchmade 9400. This is the auto version of the Benchmade 940, classic design by Warren Osborne. Osborne passed away, I believe, before this was released, so his name is on here, despite I don't think he was involved in the automatic version, but it is based off his design from the 940. The Benchmade Mediator is a confluence of the best parts of other knives that are automatics that Benchmade had in the past. Those include, but are not limited to, the CLA, the AFO, the Casbah, and they also took the design cues and elements from the 940. So it is called the Mediator because it quote-unquote mediates the best features of these different knives. Let's go ahead and get into the first category here, the blade. So first of all, there's a couple of key differences you guys should be aware of with the blade. First of all, the blade on this one is S90V, which is a very good steel, and I'll discuss the differences between these, but this one is S30V. So what is the difference between S30V and S90V? Well, S30V used to be considered a super steel. A lot of people don't think it is anymore. However, it's still an extremely good steel, guys. People act like S30V is 440C or even worse, 440A, right? It's not. It used to be a super steel. It does pretty much everything well. It can be a little bit chippy at times, but other than that, it does pretty much everything well. Not a whole lot to complain about with S30V. It is an excellent everyday carry steel. S90V trades off a little bit more of the toughness for much better edge retention. And so S90V can be a little bit chippier than S30V, although I haven't had much issue with either as far as chipping goes. But however, the edge retention on S90V is much better than S30V. So S90V is an upgrade over S30V. So that's definitely helpful for the case for the Mediator. One of the things I don't like about the Mediator that I like better on the 9400 is that if you look at the Sharpening Choil on the 9400, it goes from it extends basically where the end of the scale is, halfway past the scale and halfway out from where the scale is, or I should say the scale ends halfway in between both. And the reason that's good is because this gives enough clearance for your stones to reach the edge, so you don't have any issues, so it works as a choil, without having to do this, which is put in an actual sharpening choil. And the problem with that is that the length between your finger over here and the start of the edge over here is a little bit farther. Plus, you can have things that slip off and snag over here, which I don't necessarily love. Not that they can't slip off and snag over here as well, but I tend to have more issues with sharpening choils like this than sharpening choils like this. So I don't love that difference in the sharpening choil. As far as the stock goes, so as you can see between the two, they actually are the same stock. One of the big differences, though, and they both have reinforced tips out here. One of the big differences, though, is the swedge here extends completely, whereas here the swedge is out here, and then it retains thicker stock over here. So depending on what type of job you have, you may prefer the thicker stock of the 940 over the Mediator, but the Mediator has this, it remains thick all the way through over here, so it still has good lateral strength regardless, because in the middle it's still thick. So it sort of evokes a spear point here, where this is a true, more of a true high saber grind. Both of them have reverse tanto. You have more belly here than you do here. And I will tell you that because of the higher grind over here, this edge does cut a little bit slicier than this edge. That being said, they're not that far apart. So overall, with the added benefit of the steel, considering some of the knocks against it and everything else, this was a close call here, but this received an 7.5 as far as the score, and this received an 8. Neither one of them was going to be a 9, just because they're both a little thick behind the edge, but they're great hard. Both of them are great hard use blades in that regard. Next is ergonomics. So they have very similar handles. Like I said, this borrowed design cues from the 940 as well, and so the ergonomics are very similar. However, this has a classic neutral handle, very, very comfortable neutral handle, very familiar neutral handle for people who have owned a 940, and it's very comfortable. This one, though, takes that and sort of improves upon it a little bit. And what it does is it gives you that palm swell right here that makes this a little bit more hand-filling across the board in your hand, and you can really feel the difference in comfort that little bit makes. That being said, it's not that. It's a good increase, but it's not that much of an increase that I'm going to give it several points above it. So let's go ahead and say that this is a close call. This one received a 7 in ergonomics, mainly because it's neutral. It's very comfortable, but it's a neutral handle at the end of the day. And this one received a 7.5 in ergonomics because it is a somewhat neutral handle that has added some ergonomic features. Next is the Fidget Factor, which in this case has to do with the haptic feedback, the satisfaction of the opening mechanism, as well as how easy it is to close. So let's go ahead and take a look at the actions of both of these. As a comparator, I'm going to show you the ProTech Invictus, because ProTechs are excellent. ProTechs are probably the top tier when it comes to action on an automatic. You're going to get really good, sound out of this. You're going to get a knife that hits really hard, and you can see it hit hard when I go ahead and hold it back here, because the knife will go back and forth as the blade slams out, and it'll show you. That's the best way I can convey across on camera how hard this is hitting. So I don't know if you can see that, but let's do it again. Yeah, so it really just vibrates back and forth quite a bit, and gives you a lot of both haptic feedback and that thwack sound. So let's go ahead and the other thing is on the ProTech, they do a very good job of giving consistent pressure on their springs all the way through. That still provides for a smooth opening without having to fight too hard against it. Let's compare that against these. So the 9400 hits pretty decently hard. Let's go ahead and take a look at that again. But not nearly as hard as the Invictus. The Mediator also hits decently hard. Now, there's an interesting phenomenon that goes on between these two knives, because this has an aluminum handle and this has a G10 handle. The G10 handle here has cartridge liners. I don't know if you can see. That's what these screws are for cartridge liners. Let's see if you can see those in here. You may or may not be able to see those. There you go. You can probably see it in that view. So because of the fact that these are G10, this has a lighter blade, by the way, but because it's G10, you feel much more feedback in your hand on this one than you do on this one, because I think the aluminum absorbs a lot of that. At the end of the day, I think this actually hits a little bit harder, but this one feels harder in the hand, which is an interesting phenomenon. The other thing of note on here, well, let's go ahead and take a look at it so you can see the actions on these. So I'm going to go ahead and hold this like this. Whoops, that hit the camera stand. Let's try again. Whoop. Trying to hold it on the camera so that you guys can see it. There you go. Hits decently hard. and this one. So you can see you're getting much more haptic feedback on the Mediator than you are on the 9400, even though the 9400 seems to actually have a little bit stronger of a thwack. Oops, scratch the table. Have a little bit more of a thwack because of the fact that it is it's aluminum here. All right, let's go ahead and talk about the other issue when it comes to Fidget Factor. The other issue is how smoothly it goes back in. Now, with the Mediator, you get a very light sort of, the spring feels a lot lighter than the spring in the 9400. It is fairly consistent with little to no, grinding or anything as you pull it back. The 9400 is a little bit smoother, but has more resistance as you pull it back in. So if you prefer more resistance and smoother operation, the 9400 is your best bet. If you prefer an easier close, but being a slightly, I don't want to say gritty, but being a little bit less smooth than the 9400, then the Mediator is your ticket. So the way I scored these is at the end of the day, I gave a 7.5 to this one and a 7.5 to this one. It was a tie. Next up is the carry. So carry on this is very similar. As you can see, the 9400 slightly slimmer in the pocket. Also, you have this this edge here where I don't like when knives do this because this can catch on things. And so you have to deal with that with the Mediator. You do not have to deal with that with the 9400. And the other issue is the pocket clip here. Although this pocket clip is not as good as this pocket clip, this is the Aero pocket clip, and this is the mini Bugout deep carry clip. So although that's the case, that this is the better clip, there is one thing that Benchmade does. You can usually get for free, or maybe for another $5 if they won't give you one for free, another clip. And I would recommend the regular deep carry clip for this, because the 9400 and the 940 are the same, and you can see how deep carry that is on the 940 versus how deep carry this is on the Mediator. Now, could you get a deep carry clip, a full deep carry clip on this one? Yes, but it's going to be the same level of deep carry. You're still going to have that screw popping up behind it. So overall, I think the carry on this is a little bit better for those three reasons on the 9400 than on the Mediator. So this is going to be a 9 for carry. This is going to be an 8.5 for carry. Aesthetics. So this has that classic 9400 styling. I think that's always been a very attractive knife. Very happy with the design and aesthetics on this. I really love the way they do this half swedge out here. I think it looks excellent. I think the blade on the 940 and 9400 looks, much more. I like the design cues on that much more than the design cues on this. I also think the neutral handle here is much better for aesthetics than the palm swell handle here. So, then you also have the issue of tactical versus non-tactical. Some people prefer the tactical look. That's fine. I'm not going to actually figure that into the aesthetics here because that's very subjective. But I think overall, I think most people would agree the 9400 it has a little bit better look than the Mediator. And as a result, I'm going to give the 9400 a 9 and the Mediator an 8. Quality. These are both Benchmades, both good materials from Benchmade, and so I think the quality on these is both excellent. Benchmade has had really good quality out of their factory for me, especially over the last couple of years. I know they had some QC issues, 2015, 2016. Those have seemed to resolve, so the quality here is going to be a 9 for both. Value. This is really where the Mediator shines, is because This is about $232. This is normally $250-ish. However, this one really isn't advertised anywhere for much less than $232. They both are subject to map pricing, but you know, a couple of places have unlisted prices for this that are really $206, not $250. And so when you take into consideration that you are getting S90V steel for, you know, 25 bucks less than this, and you're getting a little bit better ergonomics, and this is less, and then you're also getting the better clip to start out with. You don't have to spend $5 on an extra clip. Once you take all of those things into consideration, I think it's pretty clear that the better value is the Mediator. Even if you were paying a full $250 for this, it would be a much closer call-in value, but I still think the Mediator would be a better value with that better steel and not having to replace the pocket clip and everything else. So overall, I think I've got a 7 on the value at this. The reason I have a 7 on this is because just be aware that the 940 itself, not just the 9400, is overpriced. The 940 runs, you know, 180-ish to 190, and the truth is it's really more like $160, $165 knife. That's what it really should cost. There is a little bit of a butterfly tax there, but I think in today's environment, it's much more acceptable to pay that butterfly tax, you know, when Spyderco, as the competition, has raised a lot of their prices. As far as the 9400 goes, at 230-ish, once you add in the automatic, the spring and everything, and work this this lock in, which is actually an ingenious lock on the spine rather than on the side like a lot of autos have. The 230 I think is fair-ish, but I think it's still a little bit overpriced. I'd love to see this come in somewhere closer to 200 to 215. As far as this goes, at 250, I still think 250 is a better value for this than 232 for this. And as a result, like I said, this got a 7, this got a 9. So overall, you add up the scores. This got a 56, and this got a 57.5. Mostly on the strength of the value issue. So if value isn't, you know, a concern for you, the truth is this would have won by a half point. But you know, value is I think a big issue for a lot of people, and therefore I think this is going to be your winner here, the Benchmade Mediator. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know in the comments which one you'd rather have. This one is actually going out to Jesse B. He won the giveaway, so I'm going to be sending this out to him in the next day or so, and you know, pumped that he's going to be able to get that. But guys, let me know which one you'd rather have. If you had both, which one you prefer. And go ahead and hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you get all my content, and like the video. It really helps the channel. Thanks so much.